could we be lining ourselves up for you here in South Africa as we gear up for the vaccination process? Many employers are doing all they can to minimize the rate of infection in the workplace. We are going to get to the point, though, where we ask this question. Can employers exclude employees who cannot produce a vaccination certificate? Let's speak to an expert on this, Senior Legal Advisor at Strata-G Labour Solutions, Justin Hattingh, joining us now. Justin, morning to you. We're still some way away, I think, from having to worry about the certification of vaccines, but let's speak about the strategies that employers now need to put into place. Will they need a certificate, or will employees need a certificate to come to work, do you think?
Morning. Thank you very much for having me. Now, this is quite an interesting question, and the reality is this. Our law doesn't allow us to force anyone to undergo any sort of medical testing, medical assessments, or to actually disclose their medical history or their illnesses, if I could put it that way. However, what we need to then understand is that what you can put in your employment contracts or your workplace policies is a sort of blanket consent where someone says, okay, I want to work for you. And part of actually taking up employment with you is agreeing to any sort of medical assessments and disclosing certain information which might be relevant to the workplace. So that's very important. So there needs to be consent from employees before something like that is then required from them.
Let's talk about the consent for a moment. And this has been an issue, hasn't it, Justin, for years and years, saying that you need to get an employee's consent before you can change anything in their contract. But if we're honest about it, no employee is going to say no to being able to earn an income. And essentially they're being forced into a company policy. And I think that's what's going to upset a lot of South Africans.
Indeed, yes. But you see, the thing is, at the end of the day, if you want to work for a company, you need to actually agree to their policies. Management always holds that prerogative. And what's going to happen is, if you have a situation where someone has now agreed and they've said, yes, I will consent to undergoing a medical testing, or I will undertake to disclose relevant medical history to you, and they don't do that, then the possibility then exists that you can discipline them for that. Not essentially for having COVID or, maybe not wanting to give you that consent and that medical history, but what you would then, discipline them for is then the breach of contract and the insubordination.
I don't want to get into the politics of the vaccination, Justin. It's not why you and I are chatting this morning. From a legal perspective, we do need to combine it slightly with the politics and South African society. There are concerns that the rollout of vaccinations to the majority of the population, many of those are in the workforce, could take a very, very long time. How is this going to work for those people who might be over the age of 60, they're still employed, they might get the vaccinations earlier than, for example, you and I, who are much younger. How do employers handle those people who are waiting for a vaccination certificate, not because they don't want it, but because it's taking so long to roll out?
I think what we need to understand is that there are certain measures in place and certain things that employers need to comply with, and then the only thing that we can really do is make sure that we enforce social distancing, make sure everyone wears their masks, sanitizers, and make sure that we don't expose other employees to that kind of risk. So the only thing we can do at this stage is then make sure that all employees follow the guidelines and follow the rules and comply with COVID regulations in the interim.
How geared up do you think South Africa's employers are in being able to implement these kind of strategies? Are we advanced enough from an employment sector to be able to roll this out professionally and proficiently?
I don't think that South African employers are not geared up towards doing that. I think we do have everything in place to be able to make sure that we do our screening, that we make sure everyone sanitizes. I think the main thing here is enforcement. A lot of employers need to make sure that their employees are wearing their masks, are social distancing. It's just a matter of everyone coming to the party and complying with what government has laid out for us.
Justin, just a final question to you, just before I say goodbye to you. As a senior legal advisor, do you foresee in your legal crystal ball court cases from employees taking their employers to work? Do you see this as an ongoing issue for 2021, 2022?
Absolutely. I think a lot of employees feel that this is going to be an intrusion on their personal privacy, and what's going to happen is there might be either religious considerations or maybe even medical history that's going to, say that, well, look, I might not be able to take this vaccine, or, you're forcing me to do certain things which are contradictory to my personal beliefs, and I think then we will see a lot of litigation going forward.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating when this certificate for vaccination starts coming into play. Justin Hattingh, I'm sure you and I will then speak closer to the time. Senior Legal Advisor from Strata-G Labour Solutions, Justin Hattingh, joining us here on the South African Morning.